They don't want you to know this. There exists a mental technique so powerful, so dangerously effective, that some of the greatest minds in human history allegedly used it in secret. Tesla, Da Vinci, Einstein. A technique capable of unlocking a level of intelligence so sharp, so relentless, that it turns your mind from a tool into a weapon. And yet today, this method has been erased from education, buried under centuries of distraction, and quietly removed from every mainstream learning system. Not because it's useless, but because it's too powerful. The moment you learn this banned brain hack, you stop being normal smart. You stop thinking like everyone else. You stop reacting like everyone else. Instead, you become dangerously intelligent, a thinker who questions everything, who sees connections others are blind to, who processes reality at a speed the average brain cannot handle. This is the exact type of mind that institutions fear. Because a person who can think at this level becomes uncontrollable. They don't follow blindly. They don't obey automatically. They don't get manipulated by fear, guilt, shame, or authority. They become a sovereign mind, the kind of mind Machiavelli described as untouchable. And here's the part they never wanted you to realize. Genius isn't something you're born with. It's something you activate. The greatest thinkers weren't gifted. They were trained. They unlocked a hidden mental operating system that allowed them to understand faster, think deeper, and see reality in layers most people never access. Today, I'm going to show you that forbidden method, step by step, not to make you feel smarter, but to make you unbeatable. They programmed you to believe a lie so deep, so subtle, that most people never escape it. A lie that shapes your confidence, your decisions, your future, and the limits you place on yourself. Here it is, the core deception. Intelligence is genetic. Genius is a gift. You either have it or you don't. This is the myth that keeps billions of people mentally weak. Because the moment you believe intelligence is fixed, you stop trying to grow it. You stop questioning. You stop imagining. You stop evolving. And that's exactly what the system wants. Look around. Almost every human being is walking through life with a mind that hasn't been upgraded since childhood. They think the same way at 20, the same way at 30, the same way at 50. Linear, predictable, obedient. But here's the forbidden truth. Genius isn't born. Genius is constructed. One habit, one thought pattern, one mental framework at a time. Every legendary mind, Tesla, Da Vinci, Einstein, built their intelligence. They weren't lucky. They were deliberate. They unlocked a mental operating system that transformed their brain into a weapon. You can unlock the same system, but only once you kill the lie that holds you back. The system wants you mentally weak. Ask yourself this. Why does school force you to memorize instead of understand? Why does it reward obedience over creativity? Why does it punish curiosity? Why does it punish questioning? Because the education system was never designed to create thinkers. It was designed to create followers, people who repeat what they're told, people who don't challenge authority, people who don't think beyond the script handed to them. They don't want unpredictable minds. They don't want deep thinkers. They don't want people who question reality. Because the moment you start thinking at a genius level, you become difficult to control. Machiavelli understood this. He wrote that power lies in the hands of those who understand the world deeper than the people around them. A ruler's greatest fear? A population capable of independent thought. Here's what they never taught you. Your brain is not fixed. It is not limited. It is not static. Your brain is a biological supercomputer, one that rewires itself every minute based on how you use it. The problem is, most people never upgrade the system. They run their entire life on the mental software installed when they were children. They think small. They question nothing. They follow orders. They fear being wrong. They fear being different. But genius-level thinkers, they don't operate on childhood software. They build a new mental operating system, one that allows them to learn faster, think deeper, and see reality with brutal clarity. This is why the gifted myth is so dangerous, because if you believe people like Einstein were born different, you never try to think like them. You never challenge your limits. You never escape the mental prison society built around you. The truth is simple. You are not limited by your genetics. You are limited by the belief systems installed in you. Break the belief, and your intelligence expands. The first step to becoming a genius. If you want to think like a genius, you must first do the one thing the world is terrified of. Question everything. Question what you were taught. Question why you were taught it. Question who benefits from you staying mentally average. Because once you start questioning, the illusion collapses. You begin to see the structure behind the world, the systems, the incentives, the manipulation, the conditioning, the hidden motives. You stop moving blindly. You stop thinking shallowly. You stop accepting everything at face value. You begin thinking at depth, and depth is where genius is born. The Machiavellian shift Machiavelli wrote that power belongs to those who understand human nature, systems, and reality better than everyone else. And here's the truth. Nobody says out loud. Intelligence isn't about IQ. It's about clarity, depth, perception, awareness. When you see what others cannot see, you think what others cannot think. And when you think what others cannot think, you can do what others cannot do. This is the beginning of dangerous intelligence. This is the start of your transformation. This is where genius begins. They told you to think logically. They told you to think step by step. They told you to think slow and careful. That's exactly why most people stay mentally average. Because the greatest thinkers in history didn't think in steps. They thought in dimensions. While most minds crawl, geniuses leap. While others think in words, geniuses think in simulations. This is the hidden brain hack schools never taught you. Hypervisualization, encoding. The average person thinks using inner dialogue, sentences, lists, verbal thoughts. Geniuses think in moving images, in 3D mental models, in fluid simulations, in dynamic systems they run inside their minds. Einstein didn't calculate relativity first. He imagined riding a beam of light. He saw time bending, space stretching, reality warping, long before he wrote a single equation. Tesla didn't build prototypes. He built entire machines in his mind, ran simulations, tested friction, heat, force, stability, then built the real thing exactly as he visualized. Da Vinci didn't memorize anatomy. He visualized the human body in layers, bones, muscles, vessels, movement, as if he had X-ray vision. This is the forbidden technique the world buried. The brain learns insanely fast when information becomes a simulation, not a sentence. This is how intelligence becomes weaponized. Now I'll show you exactly how to activate it. Step 1. Think in movement, not words. When you learn something, don't repeat it in your mind. Picture it. Turn the idea into a real scene. If you study history, see the battlefield, hear the voices, smell the air, feel the chaos. If you learn a skill, see your hands doing it with perfect detail. If you solve a problem, run the entire process in your mind like a film. The more vivid it is, the faster your mind absorbs it. This one shift alone multiplies your intelligence. Step 2. Challenge reality. What if it's all wrong? The greatest minds break the rules by questioning the rules. Einstein asked, "What if time itself is not constant?" Tesla asked, "What if electricity doesn't need wires?" Da Vinci asked, "What if humans can fly?" Their genius came from one simple habit. They erased the limits of the mind before the world erased the limits of reality. Practice this. Every day, take something everyone accepts and ask, "What if this is completely wrong?" Your brain will start generating deeper, faster, more original ideas. This is pure Machiavellian intelligence, thinking beyond the cage society keeps you in. Step 3. Use impossible questions to force intelligence growth. Your brain evolves when it struggles. Average people ask easy questions. Geniuses ask impossible ones. Examples. How would I solve this if I were the smartest person alive? How would I explain this to a child? How would this work if every rule was removed? What would a genius do right now? Your brain tries to answer. It fails. It tries again. It fails. It keeps trying. That struggle is intelligence growing. Your mind builds new neural connections, new pathways, new patterns of thinking. This is mental evolution in real time. Step 4. Flood your brain with contradiction. The average mind reads one perspective and thinks it knows the truth. Geniuses read 3 contradictory perspectives and force their brain to synthesize them. This does 2 powerful things. It destroys mental rigidity. You stop clinging to one belief. It forces deeper intelligence. Your brain must build a new model that fits all angles. This creates strategic thinking, flexible thinking, high-speed pattern recognition. This is the Machiavellian mind, able to see all sides, predict consequences, and outthink everyone in the room. Step 5. Make your brain operate under pressure. Most people collapse under complexity. Geniuses thrive in it. When you give your brain more data than it can handle, it adapts. It starts thinking in bigger chunks, larger ideas, richer patterns. Do this. Pick a topic. Absorb 3 wildly different opinions. Combine them into your own theory. Your mind will expand beyond normal limits. This is the forbidden brain hack, the one schools don't want you knowing. Because once you think like this, you stop being programmable. You stop being predictable. You become independent. And independence is the one thing the system fears most. Every mind holds the potential for greatness, but almost every mind is defeated long before it reaches its peak. Not by genetics, not by lack of effort, but by something far more subtle, far more destructive, something that kills genius before it ever forms. It's called mental fragmentation. This is the silent force that crushes brilliance. It doesn't attack loudly. It doesn't announce itself. It slips in quietly, taking over your attention one distraction at a time until your mind becomes scattered, unfocused, and weak. Most people never realize it's happening. Their mind is pulled in 1,000 directions. Notifications, conversations, noise, impulses, endless scrolling, emotional reactions. Their attention is ripped apart until they no longer have the inner stillness required for deep thought. And a mind that cannot think deeply cannot become powerful. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He wrote that a ruler who cannot control his own mind is easily controlled by others. In today's world, you are that ruler, and the forces controlling you are not kings or emperors, but distractions designed to keep you mentally fragmented. Look around. Everything is built to destroy your focus. Apps are engineered to hijack your dopamine. Media is designed to trigger emotional reactions. Society pushes you to constantly consume instead of contemplate. Noise is everywhere, and silence has become rare, almost suspicious. People today cannot sit alone with their own thoughts without feeling uncomfortable. They need stimulation every second because their brain has forgotten what real thinking feels like. Their mind has been conditioned to fear depth. Deep thought is where genius is born. Shallow thought is where genius dies. This is the genius killer principle. When your attention is scattered, your intelligence collapses. When your mind is fragmented, it loses the ability to see patterns, connect ideas, or understand anything beyond the surface. Fragmentation produces predictable thinkers, the kind that follow instructions but never innovate, the kind that repeat facts but never question them, the kind that stay mentally dependent, waiting for someone else to tell them what to believe, what to think, what to do. Society thrives when people think like this, but you will not. Your goal is to consolidate your mind, to bring your attention, your thoughts, your inner power back into one place. When your mind becomes unified again, something extraordinary happens. Your thoughts become sharp. Your intuition becomes accurate. Your perception deepens. You begin to see structures and patterns that other people are blind to. The world rewards people who can think like this. These are the minds that innovate, strategize, predict, create, and dominate. These are the minds that see 5 moves ahead, while everyone else only sees what is directly in front of them. To reach this state, you must break the addiction to constant stimulation. At first, the silence will feel uncomfortable, even painful. Your mind will search desperately for a distraction, anything to avoid facing itself. But this is the exact moment your intelligence begins to strengthen. When you sit with a single thought, something powerful happens. Your mind stops running and starts analyzing. Your thoughts stop scattering and begin assembling. You go deeper into the idea, breaking it open, turning it around, examining every angle. You begin to see connections you never noticed before, and those connections evolve into insights. That is the birth of genius. The more time you spend in this state, the more dangerous your intelligence becomes. You begin thinking in layers instead of lines. You begin seeing motives behind actions. You notice patterns behind chaos. You understand people faster, clearer, and deeper than they understand themselves. This is the Machiavellian mind, a mind that no longer reacts, but anticipates, a mind that no longer drifts, but directs, a mind that no longer follows, but leads. Once your mind consolidates, your entire reality changes. You become calmer, clearer, harder to manipulate. Your thinking becomes cold, precise, and strategic. You no longer chase distractions. Distractions lose their power over you. This is when people begin to say, "You're different now." This is when your intelligence becomes visible. This is when you separate from the average mind completely. Because once your attention becomes a blade instead of a broken mirror, you stop being ordinary. You become unstoppable. There is a form of intelligence the world fears, not because it is brilliant, but because it is dangerous. It doesn't inspire. It doesn't comfort. It doesn't make you a better person. It makes you powerful. This is the evolution most people never reach. The moment when you stop consuming knowledge like a starving animal and start weaponizing it like a predator. The average mind collects information the way crows collect shiny objects, hoarding scraps of wisdom with no understanding of how to use them. They know quotes. They know facts. They know opinions. But knowledge sits in them like rusted metal, heavy, useless, and corroding. A powerful mind does the opposite. It sharpens knowledge into blades. It does not ask, "What did I learn?" It asks, "How do I use this to bend reality?" This is where your intelligence stops being a library and becomes a war room. You begin to see that every piece of information contains leverage. Every human reveals weakness. Every pattern offers prediction. Every truth becomes a weapon when placed in the right hands. Knowledge stops being something you carry. It becomes something you aim. This transformation is dark because it forces you to abandon the fantasy that intelligence is some noble, pure, harmless thing. It isn't. Intelligence is violence when used correctly. It cuts, it disarms, it destabilizes, it rearranges the balance of power around you. The world knows this. That's why they teach you to read, but never to interpret, to listen, but never to question, to learn, but never to calculate. They fear minds that know how to use what they learn. A person who weaponizes knowledge doesn't argue. They observe. They wait. They let others spill their weaknesses out in casual conversation. They let people expose their fears, their patterns, their lies, their motives. And they file everything away with cold precision. You start to realize how painfully predictable people are, how easily manipulated, how quickly they reveal themselves with a single emotional slip, how their beliefs control them more than any external force. And once you understand that, you no longer waste energy trying to convince or impress anyone. You simply watch for the moment when your knowledge gives you advantage, and you move. This is the part of intelligence schools never touch, the ability to read people like open books, not emotionally, not spiritually, but strategically. You begin seeing the cracks in someone's confidence, the desperation behind their kindness, the insecurity behind their pride, the fear beneath their anger. You understand what drives them before they understand it themselves. That is not psychology. That is domination. Knowledge becomes an X-ray. It pierces through their behavior and reveals the blueprint underneath. Most people try to hide who they are. You no longer care. You see through them anyway. And the darker your intelligence grows, the more detached you become. Not because you feel superior, but because the world becomes predictable, almost mechanical. People stop surprising you. You stop taking them seriously. You stop taking their words as truth. You stop letting their emotions influence yours. You become immune to manipulation because you now understand the architecture of manipulation itself. This is where knowledge truly becomes lethal. You stop reacting impulsively. You respond with intent. You stop revealing your thoughts. You let silence intimidate. You stop arguing pointlessly. You let people drown in their own contradictions. You stop telling people what you know. You let them underestimate you and strike only when advantage is guaranteed. Machiavelli didn't say this, but he lived it. A mind that understands the world controls the world. Not with force, not with noise, not with emotion, with clarity. And the moment your knowledge begins shaping your decisions, your tone changes, your posture changes, your presence changes. People don't know why you feel intimidating, but they feel it. Your silence has weight. Your gaze has intent. Your intelligence moves like a shadow, unseen but undeniable. This is the black method, the forbidden stage of intelligence. The moment where knowledge is no longer a light, but a blade. There comes a point in your evolution where intelligence is no longer something you use. It becomes something you are. A presence, a force, a quiet pressure that bends the environment around you without effort. Most people never reach this stage because they cling to the illusion that intelligence ends with knowledge. But the truly dangerous minds know the truth. Intelligence reaches its peak only when it becomes sovereign. Sovereignty means the world no longer has access to your mind. Your emotions cannot be hijacked. Your attention cannot be stolen. Your identity cannot be manipulated. Your thoughts cannot be shaped by any external force. This is the form of intelligence that rulers feared, that institutions tried to crush, that systems were designed to prevent, because a sovereign mind cannot be programmed, persuaded, guilted, pressured, controlled, intimidated, or distracted. It stands alone, cold, silent, and utterly independent. You begin noticing this shift when the world's attempts to influence you no longer land. People speak with the same emotional noise they've always used, but now you feel nothing. Their urgency doesn't move you. Their approval doesn't elevate you. Their disapproval doesn't weaken you. Their expectations crumble against your indifference. The world functions on emotional levers: guilt, fear, desire, validation, shame. When these levers stop working on you, something terrifying happens. You become immune. And immunity is the beginning of dominance. People try to pull you into their dramas. You don't enter. They try to provoke reactions. You give none. They try to trap you in their narratives. You don't participate. They try to define you. Their words dissolve before reaching your mind. You do not resist the world. Resistance still acknowledges its authority. You simply outgrow it. This is the moment when your mind becomes sovereign. The world senses this shift before it understands it. People feel an unease around you, not because you're hostile, but because you're unreadable. They cannot control what they cannot predict. They cannot predict what they cannot access. And they cannot access you at all. Your silence becomes heavier than their arguments. Your stillness becomes louder than their noise. Your presence becomes sharper than their aggression. You watch them react, panic, overthink, over-explain, try to impress, try to convince, and you remain unmoved. Their emotions crash against you like waves against a stone cliff. The cliff doesn't fight the waves. It simply stands. And the waves break themselves. This is sovereignty. But sovereignty has a darker side. The side most people are too weak to handle. Once your mind becomes truly independent, you start seeing how easily others lose themselves. You watch intelligent people crumble under social pressure. You watch confident people collapse when criticized. You watch strong people become weak the moment they crave acceptance. You no longer envy them. You pity them. And you realize something chilling. The majority of people are not living. They are being lived. Their emotions are puppets. Their thoughts are borrowed. Their opinions are recycled. Their lives are responses to forces they don't understand. When you reach this level of clarity, detachment follows naturally. Not because you want distance, but because closeness becomes impossible without lowering yourself back into the simulation they still inhabit. Your world becomes quieter, smaller, sharper, more deliberate. You begin operating on long-term outcomes while everyone else is drowning in short-term impulses. You make moves without announcing them. You make decisions without explaining them. You hold secrets without feeling the need to reveal them. You think 10 steps ahead without bragging about it. This is the intelligence that alters fate. When your mind becomes sovereign, you no longer play the game. You observe it from above. You choose when to step in, when to stay silent, when to act, when to vanish. Your life stops being a reaction and becomes a strategy. And in that moment, you stop being controlled by the world, and the world quietly starts adjusting to you. This is the stage where your intelligence becomes something the average person cannot comprehend, and the powerful cannot ignore. You have crossed the line between being informed and being inevitable. There is a point in your rise where intelligence stops being an asset and becomes a burden, a beautiful, terrifying burden. The moment when your mind reaches a level of clarity so sharp it cuts through every illusion you once depended on. The world doesn't feel the same after this point. People don't feel the same. Reality itself begins to shift under your perception. This is the abyss of clarity. And once you enter it, you don't return unchanged. At this stage, your mind no longer filters truth to protect your emotions. You see things with a brutality that most people would never survive. You see the hollowness behind people's confidence. You see the desperation behind their smiles. You see how easily their convictions crumble when pressure touches them. The world reveals itself not as a place of logic or fairness, but as a theater of instincts, impulses, fears, and fragile egos pretending to be strong. You stop taking anyone at face value. You stop believing the narratives they feed themselves. You stop accepting the roles they perform. You begin observing everything from a distance, not by choice, but because your perception has outgrown the environment around you. This is not arrogance. This is evolution. Your intelligence begins to remove your attachments one by one. You lose interest in shallow conversations because your mind can already predict every sentence. You lose interest in crowds because you see how quickly they surrender their thinking. You lose interest in approval because you understand its cheapness. You lose interest in conflict because you see how little intelligence exists inside it. People misinterpret your silence as coldness. They think you're detached, emotionless, or indifferent. What they don't realize is that you're simply done playing a game you can now see through. The abyss of clarity shows you something most people never confront: how utterly alone you are inside your own mind. Not in a sad way, in a sovereign way. You understand that no one can follow you into the depths you're exploring. No one can think at the velocity you now operate in. No one can see reality the way you see it. Your mind has peeled back the surface of the world, and beneath it, you've found a darker, more primal truth. Most people do not think. They imitate. Most people do not feel. They react. Most people do not choose. They obey. Most people do not live. They drift. You watch them cling to beliefs because thinking scares them. You watch them defend illusions because reality terrifies them. You watch them chase distraction because silence exposes their emptiness. You understand them too well now, and understanding creates distance. The deeper your clarity becomes, the less the world can touch you. People try to guilt you. It fails. They try to manipulate you. You see the strings. They try to provoke you. You remain still. They try to confuse you. Your mind cuts through the fog instantly. You become a psychological storm, contained in a human frame. Calm on the surface, unpredictable underneath, impossible to influence. This is where true power begins. Because once you see the world's illusions, you are no longer trapped inside them. You no longer chase what others chase. You no longer fear what others fear. You no longer participate in the chaos that consumes them. Your mind becomes cold, not because you lack emotion, but because you no longer let emotion distort reality. You begin to make decisions with the precision of a surgeon and the detachment of a hunter. You move through life like someone who has already seen the trap before stepping into the room. You become the person who says little, reveals nothing, and understands everything. This level of clarity is dangerous, not to you, to everyone who tries to influence you. They cannot pull you into their games anymore. They cannot move you with their words. They cannot predict your reactions because you have none. And this terrifies them. The abyss changes you. It strips you of illusions. It strips you of dependence. It strips you of vulnerability. What remains is a mind honed into something unrecognizable, a form of psychological steel. The world begins to sense this shift. Your presence gets heavier. Your gaze becomes sharper. Your silence becomes harder to interpret. You don't walk into rooms anymore. You enter them. You don't talk to people. You evaluate them. You don't participate in society. You navigate it. This is not enlightenment. This is not positivity. This is the dark evolution of intelligence. The moment you become someone the world can no longer influence, shape, or break. This is the threshold before the final transformation. The creation of an unbreakable mind. There is a final stage in the evolution of intelligence. A point where your mind stops being something you must discipline and becomes something that disciplines you. A point where thinking no longer feels like effort. It feels like instinct. A point where nothing in the world can bend you, break you, or pull you back into the chaos you escaped. This is the unbreakable mind. It does not emerge overnight. It is forged slowly, one truth at a time, one illusion destroyed at a time, one weakness eliminated at a time. By the time you reach this level, you no longer resemble the person you once were, mentally, emotionally, or psychologically. The unbreakable mind is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is not filled with ego. It is quiet, cold, steady. A mind that holds its shape regardless of pressure, environment, or emotion. And this is the final transformation. You no longer collapse inward when the world leans against you. You no longer lose yourself when someone disrespects you. You no longer fall apart when faced with uncertainty. Your thoughts remain intact, unshaken, undisturbed. You begin choosing your battles with a ruthlessness that confuses people. You walk away when it costs you nothing. You stay silent when silence is the sharpest response. You move only when movement guarantees advantage. You don't need to win every fight, because you've become the kind of person who cannot be defeated by anything external. Your strength is internal now. Your clarity is internal. Your sense of direction is internal. Nothing from the outside world has permission to enter your mind unless you allow it. This is why people will misunderstand you. They will mistake your detachment for arrogance, your silence for superiority, your discipline for coldness, your strength for apathy. They won't realize that you are no longer fighting the world. You've mastered yourself. Nothing controls you. Nothing manipulates you. Nothing scares you. Nothing distracts you. You become the kind of person people can't play games with, because you see the game before they even make their first move. Your mind no longer breaks under emotional weight. It no longer bends under uncertainty. It no longer shakes under pressure. The world pushes and you don't move. Life tests you and you don't flinch. People betray you and you don't shatter. Loss hits you and you absorb it with clarity instead of collapse. This is the highest form of power a human being can possess. Not control over others, but control over yourself. A mind like this becomes rare. A mind like this becomes feared. A mind like this becomes respected without ever demanding respect. And a mind like this becomes untouchable. You will feel it happening inside you. The quiet shift, the steady hardening, the calm certainty. No more emotional turbulence, no more mental chaos, no more internal conflict. Your thoughts line up like soldiers. Your decisions land like blades. Your presence settles into every room like a silent warning. This is the unbreakable mind, the final evolution, the point of no return. And here's the truth most people never hear. Once you reach this level, you're not just living differently, you're existing differently. The world no longer dictates who you are. You dictate how you move through the world. You have become the architect of your perception, the commander of your emotions, the ruler of your inner empire. And the ruler bows to no one. If you've made it this far, you are not average. You are not weak. You are not someone who drifts through life hoping for direction. You are building a mind that the world cannot break. And that alone sets you apart from 99% of people. This is your transformation. This is your power. This is your rise. And if you're ready to keep sharpening this mind, keep going deeper into the forbidden layers of intelligence, keep turning yourself into someone reality has to respect, then you already know what to do next. Subscribe, like the video, and step into the next evolution. The journey doesn't end here. It only gets darker and smarter